Sherlock Holmes y la story de la Speckled Band, written by Arthur Conan Doyle. I have looked at my notes on more than 70 cases where I watched my friend Sherlock Holmes work over los last 8 years. Many were sad, some were funny, and many were strange, but none were ordinary. Holmes worked because él loved his job, not to get rich, so él only took cases that were very unusual or even hard to believe. The all these different cases, I cannot remember any that were more strange than el about la Roylott family de Stoke Moran in Surrey. These things happened when I first started working with Holmes, when we were both living together in Baker Street before we were married. I might have written this story sooner, but I promised to keep la a secret. I was only allowed to tell la last month because la lady I made la promise to has died. It is good to tell la true story now because I know people are telling many lies about how Dr. Grimesby Roylott died, and these stories make it sound even worse than what really happened. One morning in early April 1883, I woke up and saw Sherlock Holmes standing by my bed, already wearing his clothes. Usually él woke up late, but el clock showed it was only 7:15, so I looked at él with surprise and a little bit the anger because I liked to keep my own regular schedule. "I am very sorry to wake you up, Watson," él said, "but everyone is being woken up this morning. Mrs. Hudson was woken up, then ella woke me, and now I am waking you. What is happening? Is there a fire?" "No, a person has come to ask for my help. A young lady has arrived, ella is very upset and says ella must see me. Ella is waiting in la sitting room right now. When young women travel across la city so early and wake people up, I think ellas must have something very important to say. If this turns out to be an interesting case, I am sure you would want to see lo from el very beginning. I thought I should wake you so you would have la chance to join me. My dear friend, I would not want to miss lo. Nothing made me happier than watching Holmes work on a case and seeing how él solved problems by thinking quickly and logically to find la truth. I put on my clothes quickly and was ready in a few minutes to go downstairs to the sitting room with my friend. A lady wearing black clothes and a heavy cloth over her face was sitting by la window, and ella stood up when we came in. "Good morning, madam," él said in a happy voice. "My name is Sherlock Holmes. This is my close friend and partner, Dr. Watson. You can speak as freely in front of él as you can in front of me." "Ha! I am happy to see that Mrs. Hudson was smart enough to start a fire. Please sit near él, and I will ask for a cup of hot coffee for you, because I see that your body is shaking." "I am not shaking because I am cold," la woman said in a quiet voice as ella moved her seat. "Why are you shaking then?" "It is because I am afraid, Mr. Holmes. I am very, very afraid." Ella lifted la cloth de her face, and we saw that ella was very upset. Her face was gray and tight, and her eyes moved quickly like a scared animal being hunted. Her face and body looked like a woman of 30, but her hair was already turning gray, and ella looked very tired and worried. Sherlock Holmes looked at ella quickly and saw everything about ella at once. "Do not be afraid," él said de a kind way, leaning forward and touching her arm gently. "I am sure we will fix everything very soon. I see that you came here by train this morning. Do you know who I am then?" "No, but I see la other half of a return train ticket inside la hand de your left glove. You must have woken up early and you had a long ride in a small horse carriage on muddy roads before you got to la train station." La lady jumped with surprise and looked at my friend with great wonder. "It is not a secret, my dear lady," él said with a smile. "La left sleeve de your coat has mud on it in 7 different spots. El mud marks are still wet and new. Only a small horse carriage froze mud that way, and only when you sit on the left side of the driver." "I do not know how you know, but you are exactly right," she said. I left home before 6, got to Leatherhead at 20 minutes past 6, and took el first train to Londres. Sir, I cannot bear this worry any more. I will lose my mind if it does not stop. I have no one to help me, no one except one man who loves me, and él is Paul and cannot do much. I have heard about you, Mr. Holmes. I heard about you from Mrs. Farintosh, whom you helped when ella had a very big problem. Ella was the person who gave me your address. Oh, sir, do you think you could help me too, and help me understand las scary things happening around me? Right now I cannot pay her for your work, but in a month or two I will be married and have my own money, and then I will pay le well. Holmes went to his desk, unlocked lo, and took out a small book of notes to look for information.
Farintosh, said él. Ah, yes, I remember that job. It was about a piece de jewelry made de opal. I think that happened before you and I started working together, Watson. I can tell you, madam, that I will be happy to work as hard on your problem as I did for your friend. About money, my work is what makes me happy, but you can pay for los costs de la investigation whenever you are ready. Now I ask you to tell us everything that can help us understand what is happening. Sadly, our visitor replied, my situation is scary because my fears are hard to describe. My doubts depend on such small things that ellas might seem unimportant to others. Even la person I should be able to trust for help thinks my story is just la imagination de a nervous woman. Él does not say this out loud, but I can see it because él tries to calm me and will not look me in the eye. But I have heard, Señor Holmes, that you can understand las many different ways that people do bad things. You can tell me how to stay safe de los dangers that are all around me. I am listening carefully, madam. My name is Helen Stoner. I live with my stepfather, who is a last living member de an old English family called Los Roylots de Stockmolan, near el edge de Surrey. Holmes moved his head to show él understood. I know that name, él said. La family was once one of the richest in Inglaterra, and their land reached into las areas de Berkshire and Hampshire. However, in los last 100 years, 4 sons in a row spent too much money and lived badly. Finally, a man who lost money by gambling finished la familia wealth. Nothing was left except a small piece de land and a house that is 200 years old. La house itself is in debt because ellos owe a lot of money on ella. El last owner lived a sad life there as a poor man de a rich family. His only son, my stepfather, saw that él had to change his life. Él borrowed money from a relative to become a doctor and went to Calcutta, India. Because él was a good doctor and a strong man, él became very successful there. However, él became very angry because someone stole things de his house. Él beat his servant to death and was almost killed by la law as punishment. Instead, él was sent to prison for a long time. When él came back to Inglaterra, él was a sad and angry man. While Dr. Roylott was in India, él married my mother. Ella was la young widow de a soldier named General de División Stoner. My sister Julia and I are twins. We were only 2 years old when my mother married él. Ella had a lot of money, at least £1,000 every year. Ella gave all ello to Dr. Roylott while we lived with él, but ella said that we should each receive a certain amount de money every year if we got married. My mother died in a train accident near Crewe 8 years ago, shortly after we came back to Inglaterra. Then Dr. Roylott stopped trying to work as a doctor in Londres. Él took us to live with él in la old family house at Stoke Moran. My mother left us enough money for everything we needed, and we thought we would be happy. But around that time, a terrible change happened to our stepfather. Our neighbors were happy at first to see a Roylott return to the family home, but él did not visit them or make friends. Instead, él stayed inside and only came out to have angry fights with anyone he met. Los men de his family have always had a very bad temper that is almost like madness, and I think his long time living in hot countries made lo even worse. Elle had many shameful fights, and la police were called twice, until everyone in the village was afraid of Elle and would run away when ellos solo, because Elle is very strong and cannot control his anger. Last week, Elle threw the local metal worker over a wall and into a river, and I had to give him all el money I had to stop la police from taking him away again. Elle had no friends except for la traveling people who live in tents, and Elle let them stay on his wild land, and sometimes Elle would even go away and live with ellos for many weeks. Elle also loves animals de India that people send to Elle, and right now Elle has a cheetah and a large monkey that walk around his land and frighten la village people as much as Elle does. You can see from what I am saying that my sister Julia and I were not happy. No servants would work for us, so for a long time we did all el housework ourselves. Ella was only 30 years old when ella died, but her hair was already turning white, just like mine is now. So, your sister is dead? Ella died exactly 2 years ago, and la death is la reason I want to talk to you. Because we lived the la way I told you, we almost never met anyone who was young or like us. However, we had an aunt named Señorita Honoria Westphale who lived near Harrow, and sometimes we were allowed to visit her. 2 years ago at Navidad, Julia went there and met an army officer, and they just promised to marry each other.
My stepfather heard the el marriage when ella came home and did not say no. But 2 weeks before el wedding day, la terrible thing happened that took my only friend de me. Sherlock Holmes had been sitting back with his eyes closed, but now él opened los a little and looked at la woman. "Please tell me exactly what happened," él said. "It is easy to do that because I remember every part de that terrible time very clearly. As I said before, la big house is very old and people live in only one part de ella. Los bedrooms in this part are on el first floor and los living rooms are in el middle de los buildings. El first bedroom belongs to Dr. Roylott, el second is my sister's, and el third is mine. Las rooms are not connected to each other, but they all have doors that open into el same hallway. Do you understand what I am saying?" "Yes, I understand perfectly. Las windows de las 3 rooms look out onto el grass outside. On that terrible night, Dr. Roylott went to his room early, but we knew él was not sleeping because my sister could smell his strong Indian cigars. Because of el smell, ella left her room and came into mine, where ella sat for a while talking about her coming wedding. At 11 o'clock, ella stood up to leave, but ella stopped at la door and looked back at me. "Tell me, Helen," ella said, "have you ever heard anyone making a whistling sound late at night?" "No, never," I said. "I don't think you could be making that whistling sound yourself while you sleep, could you?" "Of course not. But why do you ask?" "Because for las last few nights, at about 3 in the morning, I have heard a quiet, clear whistle. I wake up easily, and el sound has woken me up. I do not know where el sound comes from, maybe de la room next to mine, or maybe de la grass outside. I just wanted to ask if you had heard lo too." "No, I have not heard anything. Elo must be those poor traveling people living in the woods." "That is very likely, but if el sound was on the grass outside, I am surprised that you did not hear lo too." "Ah, but I sleep more deeply than you do." "Well, it does not really matter anyway." Ella smiled at me and closed my door, and a moment later I heard la turn la key to lock la. "I see," said Holmes. "Did you always lock your doors at night?" "Always." "And why did you do that?" "I think I told Le that el doctor kept a cheetah and a large monkey. We did not feel safe unless our doors were locked." "I understand. Please continue with your story." I could not sleep that night. I had a strange feeling that something very bad was going to happen. You remember that my sister and I were twins, and you know how strong los hidden feelings are between two people who are so close. It was a stormy night. El wind was making a loud noise outside, and la rain was hitting hard against las windows. Suddenly, above a loud noise of the wind, there was a loud scream the yellow woman, who was very afraid. I knew that la voice belonged to my sister. I jumped de la bed, put a cloth around my shoulders, and ran into the hallway. When I opened my door, I thought I heard a quiet whistle like el one my sister told me about, and then a loud metal sound like something heavy falling. As I ran down el hallway, I saw that my sister's door was unlocked and was opening slowly. I looked at la door with great fear, not knowing what was going to come out de ella. By the light in el hallway, I saw my sister at la door. Her face was white de fear, her hands were reaching out for help, and her body was moving from side to side like ella could not stand straight. I ran to her and held her, but then her legs became weak and she fell to the floor. Ella moved her body as if ella were in terrible pain, and her arms and legs were shaking violently. At first, I thought she did not know who I was, but when I leaned over ella, she suddenly shouted in a voice I will always remember, "Oh my God, Helen, it was la band, la spotted band." She wanted to say something else and pointed her finger toward el doctor's room, but her body started shaking again and she could not speak. I ran out and called loudly for my stepfather, and I met him as he was hurrying out of his room in his robe. When he got to my sister, ella could not wake up. He tried to give her a strong drink and sent for a doctor de la village, but nothing helped. She slowly died without ever waking up. That was the terrible way my dear sister died. "Wait a moment," said Holmes. "Are you certain you heard that whistle and el sound of metal? Are you sure enough to promise it is true?" The official who investigated la death asked me that same question. I feel very sure I heardlo, but with el sound of the wind and the noise of the old house, I might have been wrong. "Was your sister wearing her day clothes?" "No, ella was wearing la clothes she slept in."
In her right hand, people found el burnt end de a match, and in her left hand, ella held a matchbox. That shows ella lit a match and looked around when ella heard the noise. That is a very important fact. And what did el official investigator decide was la cause de her death? He looked at everything very carefully because Dr. Roylott was known for his bad behavior in that area. But el investigator could not find a clear reason why ella died. I told le that la door was locked from el inside, and las windows were closed with old wooden covers and strong iron bars that were locked every night. People hit las walls to see if ellas were hollow, but ellas were solid everywhere, and ellos checked el floor very carefully and found la same thing. El hole for el smoke in la fireplace is wide, but it is blocked by 4 large iron bars. Because of this, it is certain that my sister was completely alone when ella died. Also, there were no marks on her body to show that anyone had hurt la. Could it have been poison? Los doctors looked for poison in her body, but ellos did not find any. What do you think caused this poor lady to die then? I believe ella died because ella was very afraid and her heart stopped from the shock, though I do not know what frightened la so much. Were there travelers living in los woods near la house at that time? Yes, there are almost always some people living there. I see. And what did you think ella meant when ella spoke de a band, a speckled band? Sometimes I thought ella was just talking strangely because ella was dying, and other times I thought ella meant a group de people, like los travelers in los woods. I do not know if las colorful cloths ellas wear on their heads made her use that strange word. Holmes moved his head from side to side because él was not yet happy with la story. This is a very difficult and serious problem, él said. Please continue your story. 2 years have gone by, and until recently, my life has been more lonely than it ever was before. 1 month ago, a good friend I have known for a long time asked me to marry él. His name is Percy Armitage, el second son de Señor Armitage, who lives at Crane Water near Reading. My stepfather did not try to stop us, and we will be married this spring. 2 days ago, men started fixing la west part de la house and made a hole in my bedroom wall, so I had to move into la room and sleep in la bed where my sister died. You can imagine how afraid I was last night when I was awake thinking about her death and suddenly heard el same quiet whistle that ella heard before ella died. I jumped up and lit la lamp, but I saw nothing in la room. I was too upset to sleep, so I put on my clothes, left as soon as el sun came up, took a carriage de la inn across la street, and came here to ask for your help. You did the right thing, my friend said. But have you told me everything? Yes, everything. Señorita Roylott, you have not told me everything. You are trying to hide la truth about your stepfather. Why? What do you mean by that? Instead of answering, Holmes moved la black cloth on el woman's arm to show her her hand. There were 5 dark marks de los person's fingers and thumb on her white wrist. Someone has treated you very badly, Holmes said. El woman's face turned red and ella hid her hurt wrist. Él is a tough man, and maybe él does not know qué strong él is. No one spoke for a long time while Holmes rested his face on his hands and looked into a burning fire. This is a very serious and difficult matter, él finally said. There are many small things I want to know before I decide qué we should do. But we must act quickly and not waste any time. If we go to Stoke Moran today, can we look at las rooms without your stepfather knowing? Él said él was coming to la city today for some very important work. Él will likely be away all day, so nothing should stop you. We have a woman que cleans la house, but ella is old and not very smart, so I can easily send her away. That is very good. Watson, are you willing to go on this trip with me? Yes, I certainly am. Then we will both come. ¿Qué will you do now? I have a few things que want to do while I am here in la city, but I will take el 12 o'clock train back so I am there before you arrive. You can expect us to arrive early in the afternoon. I also have some small things que must do first. Will you stay and eat breakfast with me? No, I must leave now. I feel better already because I have told you about my trouble. I will be happy to see you again this afternoon. Ella pulled her thick black cloth over her face and moved smoothly out of la room. And ¿qué do you think of all of this, Watson? Asked Sherlock Holmes, sitting back in his chair.
It seems like a very dark and evil matter to me. It is certainly dark and evil enough. If la lady is right que el floor and walls are strong and que no one can get through la door, window, or chimney, then her sister must have been alone when ella died that strange way. Then, ¿qué do we make of these whistles at night and las very strange words que la woman said before ella died? I do not know qué to think. Think about los night whistles and el group de travelers que are friends del old doctor. We also believe el doctor wants to stop his stepdaughter from getting married. Then there are las dying woman's words about a band and el metal sound Señorita Helen Stoner heard, which could be a bar falling into place on las window covers. When you put all these things together, I think we can find la answer. But ¿qué did los travelers actually do? I cannot imagine yet.
I see many reasons why that idea might be wrong. I see those reasons too. That is exactly why we are going to Stoke Moran today. I want to see if those problems prove la idea is wrong or if ellos can be explained. But what on earth is this? My friend shouted because our door was suddenly pushed open and a very large man stood in la opening. His clothes were a strange mix de a city professional and a farmer. Él wore a tall black hat, a long coat, and high leg covers, and él held a whip in his hand. Él was so tall que his hat touched la top of the door, and él was so wide que él seemed to fill the el doorway. Él had a large yellow face with many lines from el sun and a look de great anger. His deep eyes and thin bony nose made him look like a dangerous hunting bird. "Which one de you is Holmes?" this strange man asked. "That is my name, sir, but I do not know who you are," my friend said calmly. "I am el Dr. Grimesby Roylott, de Stoke Moran." "I see, doctor," said Holmes politely. "Please sit down." "I will not sit down. My stepdaughter has been here. I have followed her here. ¿Qué did say ella to you?" "It is a bit cold for this time de year," Holmes said. "¿Qué did ella say to you?" el old man shouted with great anger. "But I hear que las spring flowers are growing well," my friend continued de a calm way. "Ha! You are trying to ignore my question," el man said, stepping forward and shaking his whip at us. "I know who you are, you bad man. I have heard about you before. You are Holmes, el man que gets into other people's business." My friend smiled. "Holmes, you are a person que interferes in things que are not your business." His smile grew wider. "Holmes, you are just a small, annoying official de la police." Holmes laughed a lot. "Lo que you are saying is very funny," él said. "When you leave, please close la door because I feel a cold wind coming in." "I will leave after I have said lo que I want to say. Do not try to get involved in my business. I know que Señorita Stoner came to see you. I followed la here. I am a dangerous man to have as an enemy. Look at this." Él walked forward quickly, grabbed la metal fire tool, and bent la into a curve with his large brown hands. "Make sure you stay away de my hands," él said angrily, and after throwing la bent metal tool into the fireplace, él walked out de la room. "Él seems like a very friendly person," Holmes said, laughing. "I am not as big as él is, but if él had stayed, I could have shown him que my hands are just as strong as his." As él said this, él picked up la metal tool and with a quick pull made la straight again. I cannot believe él was so rude as to think I am just like la regular police. However, this makes our work more exciting, and I only hope que our young friend is not hurt because ella was not careful enough to stop this bad man from following la. And now, Watson, we will ask for breakfast, and after that I will walk to la Public Records office, where I hope to find some information que will help us with this case.
Sherlock Holmes came back de his trip at almost 1 o'clock. Él held a piece de blue paper que had many notes and numbers written on él. "I have seen a legal document que says who gets to keep el money de la wife dead," he said. "To understandlo, I had to calculate how much el money and property are worth today. When la wife died, el total money earned each year was almost £1,100, but now it is only £750 because farm prices have gone down.
Each daughter can ask for 250 pounds every year if ella gets married. It is clear that if both girls married, this man would have very little money left, and even one marriage would cause him big financial problems. My work this morning was useful because it proves él has a very strong reason to stop que las girls from marrying. Now, Watson, this is too important to move slowly, especially since el old man knows we are looking into his business. If you are ready, we will take a carriage to the station. I would be very happy if you would put your special tool into your pocket.
A good gun is a very strong way to talk to men que are strong enough to bend metal bars. I think que a gun and a toothbrush are las only things we need to take. At la station, we were lucky to catch a train, and then we paid for a small horse carriage to drive 5 miles through los beautiful country roads. It was a beautiful day with a bright sun and a few soft white clouds in el sky. Los trees and bushes were starting to grow new green leaves, and el air smelled like la nice wet ground. To me, el beautiful feeling de spring seemed very different del dark and dangerous job we were doing. My friend sat in el front of the carriage with his arms crossed and his hat low, thinking very deeply. Suddenly, él moved, touched my shoulder, and pointed across los fields. "Look over there," él said. There was a large park with many trees on a small hill, with even more trees at the very top. Las gray walls and high roof de a very old house could be seen through los trees. "Is that Stoke Moran?" asked él. "Yes, sir, that is the house where Dr. Grimesby Roylott lives," el driver said. "I see some building work happening there," said Holmes. "That is where we are going." "El village is over there," el driver said, pointing to some houses on the left. "But if you want to go to the big house, it is faster to climb over these steps and walk across los fields. There is the house, right where that lady is walking." "And I think que lady is Señorita Stoner," Holmes said, putting his hand above his eyes to see better. "Yes, I think we should do lo que you said." We got out and paid for el ride, and el carriage drove back toward Leatherhead. "I thought it was better," Holmes said as we climbed over los steps, "to let que man think we are here to fix el building or for some other clear reason. It might stop que él from talking about us to other people." "Good afternoon, Señor Stoner. You see que we have done exactly lo que we promised." La woman que visited us this morning ran toward us, and her face showed que ella was very happy to see us. "I have been waiting for you so much," ella cried, shaking our hands the friendly way. "Everything has happened perfectly. Dr. Roylott has gone to the city, and él will probably not be back until tonight." "We have already met the doctor," Holmes said, and él quickly told le lo que had happened. La face de la Miss Stoner turned very white as she listened. "Oh no," ella cried. "That means él followed me here. It seems that way. Él is so clever and tricky que I never feel safe de él. ¿Qué will él say when él comes back? Él must be careful because él might find que someone even more clever que él is following lo. You must lock your door to stay away de él tonight. If él tries to hurt you, we will take you away to stay with your aunt in Harrow. Now we must use our time well, so please take us immediately to the rooms que need to look at." La house was made de gray stone covered with spots de tiny plants, with a tall middle part and 2 curved sides que looked like las claws of a crab. In one of these side parts, las windows were broken and covered with wood, and el roof had partly fallen in, looking like a total wreck. La middle part was also in bad condition, but la part de la right was newer. Las curtains in las windows and el blue smoke de las chimneys showed que la family lived there. Some wooden frames for building had been put against la end wall, and la stone was broken, but no workers were there when we arrived. Holmes walked slowly across el messy grass and looked very carefully at the outside of the windows. I think this window is for la room where you used to sleep. La middle one is for your hermana room, and la one next to la main house is Dr. Roylott room. That is exactly right, but now I am sleeping in la middle room. Because of las building work, I assume. Actually, it does not look like that end wall really needs to be fixed right now. It did not need fixing. I think it was just a reason to make me move out the my room. Ah, that gives me an important idea. On the other side of this thin part del house, there is a long hallway with doors to these 3 rooms. Are there windows in that hallway? Yes, but ellas are very small. Ellos are too thin for a person to climb through. Since you both locked your doors at night, no one could get into your rooms from that hallway. Now, please go into your room and lock the wooden window covers from the inside. Señorita Stoner did this, and Holmes looked closely at the window from the outside and tried hard to force it open, but he could not. There was no small opening to put a knife through to lift the wooden bar. Then he used his magnifying glass to look at the metal parts that hold the door, but ellas were strong iron set deep into the heavy stone wall. He said, rubbing his face because he was confused. My idea about lo que happened has some problems.
No one could get past these window covers if ellas were locked from el inside. Well, we will see if looking inside la room helps us understand la truth. A small door on el side led into a wide hallway where las 3 bedrooms were. Holmes did not want to look at la 3rd room, so we went straight to the 2nd room, where Señorita Stoner sleeps now and where her sister died. It was a simple little room with a low ceiling and a large fireplace, like those found in the old houses in the country. There was a brown chest for clothes in one corner, a thin bed with a white cover in another, and a table for dressing to the left de la window. These things, along with 2 small chairs made of wood strips and a square rug in the middle-level floor, were los only furniture in la room. El floor and la wood on las walls were made of dark oak que was full of tiny bug holes and so old que it might have been there since la house was first built. Holmes moved the chair to a corner and sat without speaking while his eyes looked everywhere to see every small thing in la room. "Where does that bell ring?" él finally asked, pointing to a thick rope que hung next to la bed with el end de ella resting on la pillow. "This bell rope goes to la room where la housekeeper stays. Does it look newer que las other things in la room?" "Yes, it was put there only 2 years ago." "I think your sister asked for lo." "No, I never heard of ella using it. We always used to get las things we wanted for ourselves." "It seems strange to put such a nice bell rope there when it was not needed. Please wait a few minutes while I look closely at this floor." Él lay down on his stomach with a magnifying glass in his hand and moved quickly back and forth to look closely at los spaces between las floorboards. Then él did lo same thing to la wood que covered las walls de la room. After that, él walked to la bed and spent some time looking at la and looking up and down la wall. Finally, él took el bell rope in his hand and gave it a quick, strong pull. "Look, it is not real," él said. "Does it not ring a bell? No, it is not even joined to a wire. This is very interesting. You can see now que it is tied to a hook right above el small hole for el air to come in. That is very silly. I never saw that before." "This is very strange," Holmes said quietly to himself as él pulled the rope. "There are 1 or 2 very strange things about this room. For example, a builder must be very foolish to put an air hole between 2 rooms when él could have easily let in el fresh air from outside." "That was also added recently," said la lady. "Was it made at the same time que la rope de la belle?" asked Holmes. "Yes, several small changes were made around that time. These changes are very interesting. A bell rope que does not work and an air hole que does not bring in fresh air. With your permission, Señorita Stoner, we will now look inside la next room." Dr. Grimesby Roylott's room was bigger que his stepdaughter's room, but los furniture was just as simple. Las main things in la room were a simple bed, a small shelf with many books about work, an armchair, a plain chair against la wall, a round table, and a large metal box for keeping things safe. Holmes walked slowly around la room and looked at every object with great care. "¿Qué is inside here?" él asked, hitting la metal safe with his hand. "My stepfather keeps his work papers in there." "Oh, so you have seen lo que is inside. Only one time, many years ago. I remember que it was full de papers. There is not a cat inside it, is there?" "No, qué strange thing to say." "Well, look at this." Él picked up a small plate de milk that was sitting on top of la safe. "No, we do not have a cat, but there is a cheetah and a baboon." "Ah, yes, of course. Well, a cheetah is just a big cat, but I am sure a small bowl de milk is not enough to make lo happy. There is one thing que I want to find out." Él sat low on his legs in front of la wooden chair and looked at el seat very carefully. "Thank you. Now I am sure of that," él said as él stood up and put his magnifying glass in his pocket. "Look, here is something que looks important." Él saw a small whip for a dog hanging in one corner of la bed. El whip was rolled up and tied to make a circle with el cord. "¿Qué do you think of that, Watson?" "It is a normal whip, but I do not know why it is tied that way." "That part is not normal, is it? Oh, qué sad. The world is full of bad things, and when a smart man uses his mind to do bad things, it is the worst thing of all. I think I have seen enough now, Señorita Stoner, and if it is okay with you, we will go out to la grass." I had never seen my friend's face look so serious or so angry as it did when we left la room que we were studying. We walked back and forth on the grass many times because Señorita Stoner and I did not want to stop Lo while he was thinking so deeply. "It is very important," él said with a sudden shout as he stopped walking and looked at la grass at his feet.
"Stoner," él said, "que you do exactly lo que I tell you to do. I will certainly do that. This is too serious for you to wait or doubt. You might die if you do not do lo que I say. I promise you que I will do whatever you tell me. First, both my friend and I must stay la night in your room." Señorita Stoner and I both looked at él with great surprise. "Yes, we must do it this way. Let me tell you why. I think que building over there es el Village Hotel. Yes, that is el Crown Inn. Very good. Can your windows be seen from that place? Yes, they can. When your stepfather returns, you must stay in your room and act as if le head hurts. When you hear lo go to bed, open your window covers and la lock, put your lamp there to show us it is time, and then quietly take your things and go into your old bedroom. I am sure that you can stay there for one night, even if la room is being fixed. Oh yes, that will be easy. We will take care of everything else. But ¿qué are you going to do? We will stay la night in your room to find out qué is making el noise que has bothered you. I think, Señor Holmes, que you already know la answer, said Señorita Stoner, putting her hand on my friend's arm. Perhaps I do. Then, please, tell me qué caused my sister to die. I would rather have better proof before I say anything. Can you at least tell me if I am right? Did ella die because ella was suddenly very afraid? No, I do not think that is lo que happened. I think there was a real physical cause for her death. Now, Señorita Stoner, we must go. If Dr. Roylott comes back and sees us, our plan will fail. Goodbye, and be brave. If you do lo que I told you, you can be sure que we will soon stop el danger que is near you. Sherlock Holmes and I easily rented a bedroom and a sitting room in el Crown Inn. Our rooms were in el top floor. From our window, we could see la front gate and la part of the big house where la people lived. When it started to get dark, we saw Dr. Grimesby Roylott drive past. Él looked very big sitting next to a small boy que was driving el carriage. El boy had a hard time opening las heavy iron gates. We heard the doctor shout with a rough voice and solo shake his closed hands at el boy in anger. El carriage went on, and a few minutes later we saw a light appear among los trees as a lamp was turned on in one of las rooms. Holmes said as we sat together in la barque, I feel a little bad about bringing you with me tonight. There is a real chance de que we will be in danger. Can I help you? Having you there could be very important. Then I will definitely come with you. You are being very nice. You are talking about danger. It is clear que you saw things in these rooms que I did not see. No, but I think I understood more de las things we both saw. I believe you saw everything que I saw. I saw nothing strange except for el bell rope, and I truly do not know what it is used for. You saw a air hole in la wall too. Yes, but I do not think it is strange to have a small opening between two rooms. It was so small que even a rat could almost not fit through ello. I knew we would find an air hole before we arrived at the house. My dear Holmes. Oh yes, I did. You remember ella told us que her sister could smell el doctor's cigar. That made me think right away que there must be a way for air to move between las two rooms. It had to be a small opening, or people would have noticed it during la official meeting after la death. I guessed it was an air hole. But why is that a bad thing? Well, these things all happened at the same time. An air hole is made, a rope is hung, and then la woman que sleeps in la bed dies. Does that not seem strange to you? I do not see how these things are joined together yet. Did you see anything very strange about that bed? No. Elo was fixed tightly to the floor. Have you ever seen a bed fixed in place like that before? I don't think que he has it. La woman could not move her bed. Elo must always stay in el same place near el air hole en la rope, if we can call la rope, because Elo was clearly not made to ring a bell. Holmes, I cried, I think I am starting to understand lo que you mean. We have arrived just in time to stop a clever and terrible crime. It is very clever and very terrible. When a doctor becomes a bad man, él is the most dangerous kind of criminal. Él is brave and él knows many things. Palmer and Pritchard were in the top of that type of work. This man is even worse, but I think, Watson, que we will be able to stop lo. But we will see many scary things before la night ends. Please, let us smoke our pipes quietly and think in happy things for a few hours. At about 9 o'clock, the light in los trees went out, and it was dark toward the big house. 2 hours went by slowly, and then exactly at 11 o'clock, a single bright light appeared right in front of us.
That is our sign, said Holmes, standing up quickly. It is coming de la window en el middle. As we went out, él spoke briefly to the man que owned la inn, saying que we were visiting a friend late at night and might stay there until morning. Soon we were in a dark road with a cold wind in our faces, following a single yellow light que showed us el way to our sad task. It was easy to get onto el land because there were big holes in el old stone wall que had not been fixed. We walked through los trees to la grass, but as we moved toward la window, a strange and ugly creature ran out de los bushes, twisted its body in el ground, and then ran quickly into la dark. My Dios, I said quietly, did you see that? For a moment, Holmes was just as surprised and afraid as I was. Él was so upset que él grabbed my arm very tightly with his hand. Then él laughed quietly and moved his mouth close to my ear. This is a strange house, él said in a low voice. That was el baboon. I had forgotten que el doctor liked to keep strange animals. There was a cheetah too, and I thought él might jump on our backs at any time. I felt better when I followed Holmes by taking off my shoes and stepping in el bedroom. My friend quietly closed las window covers, put la lamp on la table, and looked around la room. Everything looked the same que it did during el day. Él moved close to me, put his hand by his mouth, and whispered so quietly que I could barely hear his words. If we make even a small noise, our plan will fail and we might die. I moved my head up and down to show him que I understood. We must sit here in la dark. Él would see la light through el hole in la wall. I moved my head up and down again. Do not fall asleep, you might die if you do. Keep your gun ready in case we need to use la. I will sit on the edge of the bed and you sit on that chair. I took out my gun and put la on la corner de la table. Holmes had brought a long, thin stick and él put la on la bed next to él. Next to la stick, él put a box de matches and a small piece de a candle. Then él turned off la lamp and we were in la dark. I will never forget that terrible time de waiting. I could not hear anything, not even el sound of breathing, but I knew my friend was sitting near me with his eyes opened and feeling very nervous, just like I was. Las window covers blocked all la light and we waited in total darkness. From outside, we heard the bird cry sometimes, and once we heard a long sound like a cat right in our window, which showed us el cheetah was free. We could hear a loud church clock far away que made a sound every 15 minutes. Those 15-minute periods felt very long. El clock hit 12, then 1, 2, and 3, but we still sat waiting quietly for whatever might happen. Suddenly, a quick flash of light appeared near el air hole and then went away, followed by a strong smell of hot oil and metal. Someone in my room next to us had turned on a small lamp. I heard the quiet moving sound and then it was silent again, but el smell became stronger. For half an hour I sat and listened as hard as I could. Then suddenly I heard another sound, a very soft, quiet sound, like steam coming out the pot of boiling water. As soon as we heard lo, Holmes jumped off la bed, lit a match, and hit el bell rope very hard with his stick. "Do you see lo, Watson?" él shouted. "Do you see lo?" But I did not see anything. When Holmes lit la match, I heard a quiet, clear whistle, but la sudden bright light hurt my tired eyes, and I could not see lo que my friend was hitting so hard. However, I could see que his face was very white and filled with fear and hate. Él stopped hitting and was looking up at el air hole when suddenly I heard the most terrible scream I had ever heard in la quiet night. El sound grew louder and louder. It was a rough cry de pain, fear and anger all mixed in one horrible scream. People say que far away in el village, and even in el cura house, that cry woke people up de la sleep. El sound made us feel very cold and afraid. I looked at Holmes, and él looked at me until the sound ended and it was quiet again. ¿Qué does it mean?" I asked, struggling to breathe. "It means que everything is finished," Holmes answered, "and perhaps in the end it is better this way. Take your gun and we will go into Dr. Roylott's room." With a serious face, él lit la lamp and walked in front of me down el hallway. Él knocked on la bedroom door 2 times, but no one answered from inside. Then él turned la handle and went in, and I followed close behind él with my gun ready. We saw a very strange thing. On la table was a small lamp with its cover half open, shining a bright light on la metal safe, which had its door slightly open. Dr. Grimesby Roylott was sitting on a wooden chair next to la table, wearing a long grey robe with his bare ankles showing and red slippers in his feet. The short whip we had seen earlier that day was lying across his lap.
His chin was pointed up and his eyes were fixed in a terrible frozen look in the corner of the ceiling. Around his forehead, él had a strange yellow band with brown spots que seemed to be tied tightly around his head. When we came into the room, él did not move or make a sound. "La band, la speckled band," Holmes whispered. I walked one step forward. Suddenly, la strange thing on his head started to move, and a short diamond-shaped head and fat neck that disgusting snake rose up his hair. "It is a swamp adder," Holmes shouted. "It is la deadliest snake de India. Él died less than 10 seconds after it bit him. It is true que people que use violence are hurt by violence, and la person que plants a trap for others falls en ella himself. Let us push this animal back into its box, then we can take Señorita Stoner to a safe place and tell la local police lo que happened." While él spoke, él quickly took el whip del dead man's lap, caught el snake's neck in a loop, and pulled it away de its terrible spot. Él held lo far away de his body and threw lo into the iron safe, which él then locked. These are los true facts about how Dr. Grimesby Roylott de Stoke Moran died. I do not need to make this long story even longer by telling how we told la sad news to la frightened girl, how we took la en el morning train to her kind aunt's house, or how la police later decided el doctor died because él was not careful with a dangerous pet. Sherlock Holmes told me las few things I did not yet know about el case while we traveled back el next day. Él said, "My dear Watson, I reached a completely wrong answer, which shows how dangerous it is to try to explain things when you do not have enough information. Because there were travelers nearby and la dying girl used la word band to describe la spotted snake ella saw quickly by her matchlight, I was led to think en las wrong things. I am only glad de que I changed my mind immediately when I realized de que el danger to la person en la room could not come through la window or la door. As I told you before, I quickly began to look at el air hole en la wall and el bell rope hanging over la bed. When I found que la rope was not real and la bed was fastened to the floor, I started to think la rope was a bridge for something to crawl through the air hole and onto la bed. I immediately thought en a snake, and because I knew el doctor had animals de India, I felt I was probably right. A smart and cruel man que had lived en el este would think en using a poison que no chemical test could find. Él would also like el fact de que this kind of poison works very quickly. It would be very hard for even a careful doctor to see los 2 small holes made by los serpientes' teeth. And then I thought en el sound of the whistle. Él had to call the snake back before la morning light showed la to the person en la bed. Él likely used la milk we saw to train the snake to come back to él when él called. Él would put la snake through the air hole and the best time, certain de que it would crawl down la rope to the bed. The snake might not bite la person every time, and ella might be safe for a week, but eventually it would bite la. I had already decided these things were true before I even went in his room. When I looked at his chair, I saw él often stewed on ella, which él had to do to reach el air hole. Seeing la metal box, la small plate de milk, and el piece de rope made me sure I was right. La loud metal sound Señorita Stoner heard was her stepfather quickly closing la box to hide la terrible snake inside. Once I was sure de la truth, you saw lo que I did to prove'lo. I heard la snake make a hissing sound just as you did, so I quickly lit a light and hit la. This action drove the snake back through the air hole. It also made la snake attack its owner en el other side of the wall. I hit la snake with my stick and made it very angry, so it bit the first person que saw. So I am partly la reason Dr. Roylott died, but I do not feel bad about ello.